I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Agan and let him explain a little bit of what text neck is and how we're seeing it in our office.
It is something that is probably the most common micro trauma injury that we see in probably ages mid-30s to upper teens.
Yeah.
If you think about it, like going back to what you were saying with technology, what a beautiful thing. And it's moving at a rapid rate right now. We need to keep in mind that the body wasn't designed to withstand so much technology. So anything in moderation. So, I mean, you think the common, the Nokias came out, 20 years ago, 01, 02. So we're looking at over 20 years now of that starting to become a problem. So we're aware of it now. We're seeing it now in the office. We're seeing degenerative changes, which is a breakdown of arthritis in patients in their mid-20s with no history of car accidents or trauma. So the 7 cervical vertebrae in the neck are designed to bend and move together, allow us to turn our head, bend down, look down. So what's the common position you see somebody when they're looking at their phone is they're looking straight down, which is hinging the joints of the spine, particularly around C5, C6, about 3/4 of the way down the neck, which also branches into the top of the shoulders. So you're hinging that joint and you're just every day after day for hours on end. And even if you're working in a computer setting, that's adding even more stress to the spine, which is wearing down that joint, altering the function of it, which is straightening the curve. And then you have muscle spasms and all the tissues around it adapting to the repetitive stressors. So common symptoms that we see are stiffness in the neck, get better throughout the day, and also the urge to want to pop or crack your neck, which is what we talked about in the last episode. So we never want the pain to start going down the arm. If it's doing that, a lot of the times it's a little too late with compression of that brachial plexus, that branch of nerves that comes out of the base of the neck there.
Yeah. And so a lot of that, when it comes to that pain down your arms, it's also because of those rounded shoulders as well. So we talk about a little bit about the neck, but also because of the way we sit and we slouch. And like I said, if you watched last episode, we have to work on this every day as well. I mean, our bodies want to naturally go into this kind of lazy, relaxed position. But the only problem is over time, well, that really starts to wreak havoc on you. So like Dr. Agan was talking about with your head being down for such a long time, our neck is supposed to have a forward-facing curve. So the back parts of our necks are supposed to sit on the Z joints. The Z joints do not have any disc in between them. That biologically, that is the way that our neck wants to be. And just to exaggerate it, it's kind of like if your neck was just like that. But really, it's supposed to have a forward-facing curve. It sits over top of our bodies nice and neat, and we're good. Our bodies really weren't made to have our necks down that far for that long. So what's ended up happening is the compression between each vertebrae and the disc in between it, those discs just weren't meant to have that much pressure on them. And what we're seeing, because we take x-rays on anybody that's 25 and older, because we got to see what that spine looks like before we adjust it, we're starting to see some of the wear and tear of what's happening when someone's sitting at the computer. And Dr. Agan can elaborate a little bit more on what we're seeing on those x-rays that we really didn't see before.
Yeah, and it goes back to the simple law of cause and effect. Every cause is going to issue an effect, good or bad. Anything repetitive is going to have an outcome that might not be in your favor if it's something repetitive that's negative for yourself. So the Z joints that you were talking about, those are where the synovial fluid is lining, which is actually creating the pop or crack noise. So that area of the spine is repetitively getting stressed, which is causing actually friction along the joints. And just like anything repetitive, like we talked about. So if you think about a callus on your hand, what happens if you play the guitar or you go to the gym regularly and you create that friction? Well, the blister goes away, then it turns into hardened skin. So the body naturally does that so that the skin doesn't break open, you get infection. So if we look at that internally inside the spine, physiologically, that is causing repetitive stress, which is causing the joint to actually wear out and weaken. And so then this is where the self-popping and self-cracking comes into play, because that joint that's injured, the bones above and below that are moving too easy. And so that pressure release that we're seeing with the self-cracking or the homemade crack videos, is a release of pressure, but not specifically to the area that's causing the stress and the
And
injury.
it gives you a temporary relief. It gives you just a little bit, just because something's moving. But when you're popping those areas, if there is a real trouble area, it's not going to move as easy as those other ones are. You're not getting that one to move.
Heck no. There's so much tissues and muscles and structures around that are kind of splinting, protecting it from moving any worse than it is already.
Yeah, and so we talked a little bit about tech neck and how it affects the joints and the disc, but also there's one more component, and it comes down to the muscles and how those react to that forward facing curve and it straightening out. So basically, what we're seeing is that when their necks start to straighten out, the muscles that hook from the base of your skull, and you got a ton of muscles, full list of them that hook on from the base of your skull, and some of them even go down to the middle of your back, your trap muscles. All people know about those. So when you lose that forward facing curve and that neck starts to fall forward, do you think your muscles actually lengthen out? No, they stay the same shape and same size, but now in a neutral position, they are over elongated.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of like I just told a patient that was probably yesterday, we like to have people at neutral, and that's the big word for that is homeostasis. You want everything to biomechanically be good, your organs, everything to be at homeostasis, ready to do what you got to do. But when you start losing that curve because of looking at your phone or looking at the computers too long, what ends up happening is your new neutral is actually a little bit in the red now. Mm-hmm. So when you start off the day, your muscles are already too elongated. So when you go do those actions, it starts hurting more and more and more because now you start off the day and your neck is already a little bit in a crisis mode. And as you let that go, it continues to get worse and worse and worse. And that's why we see people, they start trickling in after it's been going on for a few months.